everyone, welcome to Let's Sew Kids. I'm Miss Susan, and today we are going to take a look at the parts of the sewing machine. So let's get started. Your sewing machine runs on electricity. You're going to have an outlet here for your power cord. You'll have another outlet for your foot control. This is your foot control. It runs the machine. The harder you push it down, the faster the machine is going to go. So that will sit on the floor under your foot. There are some sewing machines, this one happens to plug everything in on the side. There are some sewing machines that everything plugs in on the back. There's even some machines that these two cords are joined together. They plug into one spot on the machine. It's really all doing the same function. The other thing your machine will have is an on and off button. And again, it might be on the back, it might be on the side, but it's going to turn your machine on and off. So this particular sewing machine has the stitch chart right on the front. Some of them have them in the manual, but this one has it on the front. This dial here is my stitch selection button, so I would turn it to select the stitch that I want. Some machines have dials, some machines have buttons. They're all going to do the same thing. When I select my stitch, and I'm in straight stitch right now, I have an adjustment where I can change the length of my stitch, or maybe if I'm in a zigzag stitch, this happens to be stitch number 5, I can change the width of it, how wide that zigzag or any of the other stitches are. So that's a little bit the basic information on there. I also have a speed control, which is really helpful if you're a beginner sewer. What it does is no matter how far down you press your foot control, it's only going to go so fast. So it controls your speed. I really like sort of that middle position, even for a beginner, because I think the first one's a little too slow, but the third position is way too fast. So I like to set it when in my classes when my students are first starting at about that middle position, and that's a really good speed. On the side of my sewing machine is this large wheel here is called the hand wheel. This is really actually runs your machine. You'll see this as you press the foot control. You'll see this turn, but if you turn it by hand, it will also make stitches. One thing to remember with your hand wheel is you always want to turn it towards you to make the stitch. If you turn it the other way, you're not going to break the machine, but it's not going to make a stitch. So think of it as if you forget the direction you wanted to turn it, think of it as you're bringing a glass of water up to your mouth. That's the direction you'll always turn your hand wheel. So this is the stitch area. This is where the sewing is going to actually happen. The parts of this area are, this is the presser foot. It holds your fabric against what's called the feed dogs. Your feed dogs have little teeth on them, and they move the fabric to the back as you're sewing. This particular sewing machine has the feet snap on and off. Sometimes they screw on and off, but it's going to accomplish the same thing. To drop the presser foot, you have a presser bar lifter, a presser foot lifter. When it's up, that's when you can insert your fabric to get ready to sew. When it's down, it's in sewing position. This whole area here is called the throat plate. It serves a couple of functions. It protects the bobbin area and some of the machine mechanics that are down in here. We'll talk about the bobbin area a little bit later when we talk about threading your sewing machine, but it also, there's a lot of mechanical workings underneath there, and it protects that. The other thing it does is there are markings on there that give you measurements so you can line up your fabric as you sew, get it in the correct position. I have 2 more functions on the sewing machine that I want to show you. First, it's the reverse button. You can see this upside down U. It allows the sewing machine, when you press that, to sew backwards. Some machines have a button, some machines have a lever, but all machines have this function. We'll be talking more about the reverse function when we actually sew a project. The other function I want to show you is the tension dial. You really shouldn't have to change this much. It allows the sewing machine to feed the thread properly. It comes preset from the factory in the tension that it should be, but we'll talk a little bit more about this and how this dial works when we're actually threading the machine. So that was a tour around the sewing machine. Take a look at your machine and get acquainted with the parts that we talked about today. And get ready, get set, and let's sew.